going to get started now. It's 6:05. I do want to welcome all of you to this evening's virtual Zoom general meeting. It is July 27th. This is our first general meeting since February. And we thought, it was time that we adopt to the changing times that we're at right now, and having to deal with the pandemic, but also to have to social distance and keep ourselves and our family and our community safe. So the Zoom is the platform we're using right now. It is not ideal, but we have to make do with what we've got. Again, those of you that are joining us, we have sent out a link to our website that has a PowerPoint presentation that we'll be going over this evening, with that providing information to you. We have a number of questions that have been received already via email. So we've formulated answers to all of those questions as well, that we will go through after the presentation. And then if there's time at the end, we'll take questions from those of you on the phone. We do use when we get to the question and answer part, if you could raise your hand on the system here or make some sort of indication that you want to ask a question. So anyways, so I'm going to call our meeting to order this evening. We're going to run this like a regular general meeting if we were in person.
We're all here.
I'm going to, so I'll read the call the meeting to order. We have an agenda, the acceptance of the agenda for this evening, the rules of order. We will go through the follow-up from the last general meeting of February 27th, the follow-up action items there. Going to provide a PowerPoint presentation to you on the COVID update or COVID response from the MCA. Questions and answers from those of you that have emailed or sent messages and asked questions related to COVID or other business. We'll answer those. If time permits, we'll take some questions from you, the community. And then we have a resolution that we have to officiate, and then we have announcements. So that's our agenda. Could I have a motion by one of the members of council to accept the agenda? Moved by Tim, second by Julie. All of those members in favor, please raise your hand in front of your camera. Thank you very much. So all of our members are in attendance here virtually on the Zoom system. No members are absent this evening. As we have traditionally done, we've had a cancellation protocol for general meetings in the unfortunate instance of death of one of our community members passing. This evening, we're on schedule for the last Thursday of the month, but we wanted to acknowledge all of those community members and loved ones that we have lost since the last general meeting of February. So we're going to play a small video here before we begin in recognition of them. So if I could ask Shannon or Ashley to go ahead and start that.
wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind.
Grand Chief, we can't hear you.
My apologies. So on behalf of myself and council, I want to extend our deepest condolences and sympathies to all of the families affected by loss since our last general meeting. And it's been extremely difficult to deal with the pandemic and then have to deal with the loss of a loved one and having to social distance and not being able to console our families and friends has been extremely difficult. So we want to acknowledge all of you and all of the families affected. So this evening, as I mentioned earlier, before we started the memorial slideshow, we wanted to we're going to go through. I'm just putting up really quickly on your screen here. So we have the acceptance of the agenda, the rules of order, the follow-up from the general meeting of 27th of February, COVID update, question and answer resolution. There are no district meeting announcements. There's a congratulatory acknowledgement that we wanted to make, and then adjournment. So we're going to go till approximately 8 p.m. or sooner, depending on how long the conversation takes. So. All right, so the tonight is a little bit different because we are on a Zoom platform. So we are going to start at 6 o'clock. The rules of order 8 p.m. In which we'll adjust as necessary for 8 p.m. Personal issues will not be dealt with. We're going to use this form as the same as it would be in general meeting if we were in person. We won't be dealing with personal items in this platform. If there are items that need to be addressed, we can make one-on-one time for you and the executive director or the programs or the district chiefs that need to be, so that will happen outside of this venue. Questions and comments, I know it is a bit difficult in this. If those of you that do use the Zoom platform, please raise your hand on here. If you're not able to, please just unmute and just say that you want to ask a question. This will be later on. We're going to go through the presentation first, just because, and then we'll take questions from the presentation after. It's just easier to manage. So those of you that are able to write down your questions as we go through the PowerPoint, please jot them down. We will answer them later on. We need to keep this orderly. It's a bit difficult, but we'll do our best. The questions, normally we ask them to keep them relevant to to what we're discussing. In this case, it's going to be the presentation, so we'll go through questions then. And issues on this meeting that can't be addressed will be as the same as always, noted and followed up on and reported back at the next general meeting as follow-up. So again, thank you for your understanding of using this system for this evening. Again, I do want to say that not all of the people who are calling in, whether it be on Zoom or on by phone, general meetings are designed for members only. So we did have a couple emails for non-members wanted to join in this evening. I let them know that unfortunately general meetings are for our members only. So I need to reiterate that as well to you. So it's the same rules apply if we were in person. Okay, so we're going to get started. We have again a PowerPoint presentation. Those of you that have received our emails, there's a link on there. It's on our website. Just went up this afternoon for the PowerPoint. We are going to be putting it on the screen here for to go through as well with you. But I just wanted to make sure that you have copies there if need be. So we'll get that started now. You will have to bear with us a bit. Obviously, this is kind of new for us too. We haven't done a general meeting on the Zoom system. We have done a general meeting, or we have done one other community meeting in the form of consultation for the demolition of Admin 1, but we haven't done a general meeting. So we're going to take you through this here. Is that the full screen? Can somebody just acknowledge? Yeah, okay. Okay, so this is the PowerPoint that we wanted to go through this evening. I am going to be assisted by some of the members of council who will be helping me out on this as well. So the agenda here on this PowerPoint is going to be the COVID-19 information, precaution, and statistics. So we will go through a bit of that with you. The MCA's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. We wanted to touch on AMP's Marine Patrol. And would go through the questions and answer again with the that we've received and other ones that we can go through. So I'm going to ask Vanessa Adams if you could unmute yourself and walk us through this.
Good evening, everyone. COVID-19 is the infectious disease caused by the most recently discovered coronavirus. This new virus and the disease were unknown before the outbreak began in Wuhan, China in December 2019. The World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a global pandemic in March of 2020. The most common symptoms of COVID-19 are sustained temperature reading of 100.4 degrees Fahrenheit or more, coughing, shortness of breath, or difficulty breathing. Other symptoms that are less common may affect some patients include aches and pains, nasal congestion, headaches, conjunctivitis, sore throat, diarrhea, loss of taste or smell, a skin rash, or discoloration of fingers and toes. These symptoms are usually mild and begin gradually. Some people become infected but only have very mild symptoms. Next one. Most people, about 80%, recover from the disease without needing hospital treatment. However, about 1 out of every 5 people who gets COVID-19 becomes seriously ill and develops difficulty breathing. Older people and those with underlying medical conditions like high blood pressure, heart or lung problems, diabetes or cancer are at a higher risk of developing serious illness. It is most important to know that anyone can catch COVID-19 and become seriously ill. To reduce your chances, regularly and thoroughly clean your hands with alcohol-based hand rub or wash them with soap and water. Maintain at least 2 meters or 6 feet distance between yourself and others. Avoid going to crowded places. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth, and make sure that you and the people around you follow good respiratory hygiene. Wear a mask or other face covering in all indoor public spaces. Stay home and self-isolate, even with minor symptoms such as a cough, headache, or mild fever, until you recover. Have someone bring you supplies, and if you have any questions or symptoms, call MCA's Community Health Program for a pre-screening by phone. Though they will schedule a COVID-19 test for you if needed. Keep up to date on the latest information from trusted sources. And here are some statistics from around the world and locally. And you'll see we are now at 12 cases, 0 deaths with 4 recovered. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa, for walking through that with us. The next slide, we're going to ask Chief Julie Phillips-Jacobs to please assist with this.
Good evening, everyone. So MCA's response. March 11th, a travel ban was imposed for MCA employees. March 12th, MCA chief self-imposed a travel ban for a 6-week period, which continues to be in force. March 13th, MCA employees were advised that any voluntary travel outside the community would result in a mandatory 14-day quarantine period using their own leave credits. March 14th, MB closed daycare, schools, and post-secondary programs. March 16th, MCA and the St. Regis Mohawk tribe declared a community-wide state of emergency due to the COVID-19 pandemic and activated their emergency operation centers. MCA's EOC began operating from 9 to 6 Monday through Friday at Ganagotsuio Health Facility. March 18th, Canada and the United States closed the international border and limited border crossing to essential travel. Akwesasne residents were not affected by the closure and were advised to use their status cards and cross only for essential purposes, which also is still in effect. March 21st, the protocol for funerals were changed, allowing a maximum of 10 people in funeral homes to ensure social distancing. March 24th, all MCA facilities were closed to the public and non-essential staff were placed on stand-down status. March 28th, the first confirmed case of COVID-19 in Akwesasne was reported by the Franklin County Public Health Department. April 3rd, emergency food package pickup was provided at the 3 district schools and delivered. Emergency food packs were delivered to AMBI low-income families, Meals on Wheels, clients, elders, and others in need. This service was offered on a weekly basis. April 9th, community parks, playgrounds, they were closed. Signage was displayed at the district recreation centers, district daycares, AMBI school playgrounds, tennis courts, and lacrosse boxes. On April 13th, the Akwesasne emergency curfew law was enacted, requiring residents to remain at home between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. to use best efforts to maintain a social distance of 2 meters from others when in public, to avoid social gathering, and to self-isolate with symptoms or self-quarantine those monitoring for symptoms in case they develop for 14 days if they return to Akwesasne from outside the 50-mile, 80-kilometer radius. April 13th, essential businesses were notified of the requirement for them to take protective measures, including ensuring crowd control and implementing hygiene and disinfection procedures, and providing signage throughout the businesses to alert customers of the new requirements. April 20th, a drive-through COVID testing clinic was opened by MCA's community health program. The testing clinic allows for results to be received quicker than if testing took place outside the territory. April 28th, long-term facilities expanded their restrictions so that no visitors were allowed on the properties surrounding the facilities. Window visits were discontinued for the safety of our elders. Video conferencing was encouraged. May 7th, it was announced that all residents and staff of our long-term care facilities would be tested for COVID-19 as a precautionary step, given that the residents are at high risk, and long-term care facilities in general have experienced a high rate of deaths due to COVID-19 outbreaks. May 11th, MCA's EOC began operating from 9 to 5 from Monday through Friday at the Guanajuato Health Facility. The end time changed from 6 to 5 p.m. Week of May 11th, a survey was offered from April 24th to May 1st to determine community interest and eligibility for the Akwesasne Community Garden Initiative. As a result, a total of 450 community members received raised garden boxes, soil, plants, and growing instructions. The initiative started the week of May 11th and is ongoing.
Great. Thank you, Julie, for assisting. I'm going to ask Chief April Adams Phillips if you could take us through the next few slides.
Good morning, or good afternoon, good evening. Okay, June 2nd, 2020, MCA managers physically returned to their workstation to plan for the return of all employees. This was phase 1 of MCA's resumption plan. June 8th, 2020, MCA's EOC continued operating from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday at the Guanajuato Health Facility. The EOC phone numbers remained operational, being answered by our emergency measure officers who continued to monitor the situation in Akwesasne and the surrounding areas. June 15th, 2020, the first phase of the frontline employees physically returned to their workstations. This was phase 2 of MCA's resumption plan. MCA's response, June 16th, 2020. All community businesses were notified of the requirement for them to take protective measures, including ensuring crowd control, implementing hygiene, disinfection procedures, and providing signage to their businesses to alert customers of the new requirements. June 18, 2020, visits to our long-term care facilities began to slowly resume with precautionary measures in place. June 29, 2020, all MCA's employees returned to their workstation on a full basis. This was phase 3 of MCA's resumption plan. June 29, 2020, the Akwesasne emergency curfew law was amended only to change the curfew hours from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., 11 p.m. to 5 p.m. The maximum travel radius of 50 miles, 80 kilometers outside of Akwesasne remains as the community safety is council's priority. MCA's response, July 2020. MCA reopened to the community. This was phase 4 of MCA's resumption plan. Everyone entering a MCA facility must wear a mask and is subject to screening. Plexiglass barriers were installed at all reception areas. Large stickers are on the floor to remind everyone about maintaining social distancing. July 20th, 2020. 3 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Akwesasne were reported by the Franklin County Public Health Department, bringing the total since the state of emergency was declared to 7. July 22nd, 2020. 1 additional confirmed case of COVID-19 in Akwesasne was reported by the Franklin County Public Health Department, bringing the total to 8. July 23rd, 2020. An additional 4 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Akwesasne were reported by SRMT's Health Services, bringing the total to 12, with 4 of these being resolved. And here's the graph for the community health, community health nurses COVID-19 statistics. As you may see, from March 31st, we had 671 related calls. Tests administered were 40. June 1st to June 30th, we had 288 calls of related COVID-19 and 64 tests administered. July 1st to July 23rd, 751 COVID-related calls, tests administered, 258. The total number of related calls, 1,710. Tests administered, 362.
Thank you, April, for taking us through that. The next slide here that we wanted to go through with you is the funding and expenses. We've received lots of calls and about where the additional funding, or if there's any additional funding, or has the MCA received. So this chart shows the monies that have been received. So I'll just walk you through it. So there was a one-time targeted funding from ISC, which is Indigenous Services Canada, for pandemic, was $923,474. Another one-time target from ISC, Indigenous Services Canada, for the Family Wellness Program, which is the shelter, formerly the shelter on Cornwall Island, for $274,421, specifically for the shelter. The Ministry of Indigenous Affairs for Ontario provided $71,450, and then later on provided another $130,438. The IPHC, which is a health council, provided $51,963, and the MOHLTC, which is the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care, provided a total of $216,944, which the total received for the COVID-19 pandemic to the MCA from various funding sources was $1,668,690. So the next part of the graph spells out some of the expenses that that money has been used for. So the health PPE was $10,578. The community food distribution was $130,815. The health COVID supplies, another $181,547. The garden box project was $187,239. The MCA has spent approximately $85,000 on signage, plexiglass, additional apparatuses to protect the staff and the community in the facilities. Thus far has been $358,169 in MCA staff top-ups. And then the healthcare worker top-ups has been $229,376. So the total expenses so far have been $1,182,744, and there is currently a surplus of $485,000. So we can go through a bit of these later on in the question and answer period, but this money is going to be used also for future second wave planning as well. So some of these costs will continue to be incurred. It's also important to note, and these questions were received already, that some of the top-ups and $4 increments that the ministry has mandated, we'll talk a little bit about that. Some questions have been received about that, but we wanted to provide all of the numbers. This is all of the money that the Mohawk Council has received. We have not received, there's been some rumor that we received $14 and $30 million. It's $1.6 million have been received thus far for the pandemic in relation to that. So the other item that we want to cover in this presentation is AMP's Marine Patrol. So on May 21st, the RCMP issued a notice to the public in general saying that as a result of the border closure for non-essential travel, that they would be increasing their land and marine patrols in the Cornwall and SDNG area in order to secure the border, deter smuggling activities, and ensure that boaters comply with the restrictions related to the pandemic. So sporadically throughout early the summer, in the past, MCA has been, earlier in the summer, we began receiving reports and concerns from community members about the presence of the RCMP in our territorial waters. So we contacted the RCMP to discuss these later occurrences, and then we later followed up with a letter to the Valleyfield and Cornwall RCMP detachments to remind them that the Akwesasne Mohawk Police Services is our police force and which is responsible to patrol our waters. Our police force is widely recognized by the external forces enforcement agencies as a vital partner and as an asset for responding to and disrupting organized crime activities in and around Akwesasne. So our police force is well known. The RCMP, we let the RCMP that they're not welcome in Akwesasne territorial waters unless they have been we have requested their assistance. And at this point, the AMPS has not requested the assistance of the RCMP. In July, we received a concern from community members that the presence of the Sorrente, Quebec, the SQ, were in our territorial waters. So we sent a very similar letter to the SQ headquarters, reminding them that the Akwesasne Police Service is our police force in our community and is responsible to patrol our waters. We let the SQ know that they're not welcome in our territory unless the Akwesasne Mohawk Police has requested their assistance. And at this point, the AMPS has not requested any assistance from the SQ. These letters, we both received the letters from the RCMP and the SQ indicating that both police forces agencies are aware of and respect the role of AMPS as our community police services responsible for the safety and security of the Akwesasne community. The RCMP and SQ both wish to maintain a respectful relationship with the Mohawk Police, the MCA, and the community of Akwesasne. So in doing so, they both have agreed that they will not patrol our territorial waters unless AMPS has requested their assistance. So I do want to note at this point that we have received feedback from the community in various fashions with relation to external police forces in our territory and in our waters. I can tell you that our council has had numerous discussions in the last little while since the pandemic, and then most recently in the last couple days. What we are going to be doing is having a community information session, very similar to this, on the Zoom platform with representatives of the Akwesasne Police and the Police Commission, and talking about police services, responsibilities, protocols, information sharing with the community, so that the community understands the processes, understands what the responsibilities are of council, the police services, and of the commission, in order so that community can better understand how the police services work here. So we'll be announcing that in a couple of weeks, a specific session on with the Akwesasne Police. So please stay tuned, and that's in response to some of the concerns that we've heard from the community. So looking forward, preparing for a second wave. Now, this is not something that we really want to be planning for, but it is a reality that we have to be able to be prepared for a possible surge of COVID-19 cases in the fall. So what are we doing is that we're learning from our first wave and reviewing what went right and what went wrong. So there's lots of persons involved in dealing with the pandemic, so everybody is taking a review. We're looking at, or we will be stockpiling the PPE for our health sector. We've seen lots of concerns in health sector with relation to ensuring that PPE is available when needed. Food security and stockpiling for possible household and for household essentials. This is something that we're examining as well, because we do know that we've seen some panic buying when this started. For whatever odd reason, it was very hard to find toilet paper in the stores. While that is funny, we want to make sure that the essentials are available to the community as well, as far as non-perishable foods and things like that. So we're examining that going forward. The education in connection to improve the online learning. So I had to learn very fast, adopt very fast, because we were still in the school year when the pandemic hit. So the education program is looking at that. We have a question coming up later about education. We've got lots of calls about that. Technology as well, what is needed to improve the services to the community, whether it be through access and services or the technology itself. I know that we're all using the internet right now, and the various parts in the community is not that great. We're well aware. This has identified that, so we're looking at some options there. We have questions on that and answers on that. Community services, so how to properly deliver services using new technology. So we're continuously looking at ways to deliver the services to you, the community, but using technology or fashions that are less having to be less physically in the presence of somebody else. And they updated the emergency preparedness law. So there was a question that we received on that. We'll talk about that in questions and answers as well. The difficulty is that people are tired of being isolated and may be resistant to lockdown and quarantine measures. We absolutely understand and recognize that, and want to acknowledge all of you for everything that you have done in our community to keep yourself, your family, and ultimately our community safe. So that is the presentation that we had prepared for this evening, and we're going to stop the screen share there. I do have a number of questions that were received, so I will go through them. Again, if your question has not been answered by what we have to share tonight, please, we hopefully have some time to go through that as well. So these are questions that are a wide variety, not all related to the pandemic, but I'll just go through them as I've been provided with a report on the questions that we received over time. So one of the questions that we received was what happened with the Dundee land claim. So the land claim itself has been completed. All appeals were addressed. The MCR was passed accepting the referendum results and was sent to Canada. The funds for the Dundee claim has been received, the $239 million. One of the projects now that is going to be underway will be, again, the development of community consultation for the proceeds. We already have a framework on that. You have to understand that the point in which we are in right now, we're not 100% back to normal business because the COVID is still live and real. Dealing with that in the community is live, as we've seen over the last week. But the phase now will start rolling out about the consultation with the community on what priorities will be that will be used for the monies. And the Aero staff and the portfolio chiefs have a framework that should have been rolled out by now, but the pandemic struck in March and really put a slowdown on everything. So the question is how much interest is earned to date, and all of that money that has been earned for the 239 is rolling back into the money itself, so the principal. So the 239 has grown already because there's significant interest being earned on that. The Akwesasne Financial Administration Law was a question that we received as well. So, and the question was whether or not the FAL is in place. The Financial Administration Law, we refer to it as the FAL. Yes, the FAL is in place. And what is the update on the status of it and is being followed? So we're still in the implementation phase of the FAL, understanding that that we were struck by the pandemic, which has slowed the implementation down because we had to adjust everything that our operations and our practices had to be altered a bit, but the FAL is in place and moving forward. The other question is not when will the chiefs and grand chiefs monthly reports, including financials, be provided to the community members? So there's nothing in the FAL that requires reports to be done. As from the chiefs, a number of the chiefs already do reports to the community in different fashions and forms, whether it be in the newsletters. But the finances for the chiefs are published through our annual audits. It tells the amounts of the salaries of the chiefs and what the expenses were for that chief for the year end. And I do believe that is available and it is published on our website. So that information is on there now. The other question related to the FAL was MCA's Sunshine List ever published? So in 2009, it is ready. It just has not been published at this point due to the pandemic. So that will be coming forward. So again, there was a question received exactly where the funds were spent for the COVID-19 funding. We went through that in the PowerPoint presentation, and that's available on our website. I know that on social media there was some screenshots going around about the $923,000 that the Mohawk Council received from the government, and there has been people saying, where is our COVID money? Why are we not getting checks? Unfortunately, it's important to recognize that the federal government did not provide millions and millions of dollars to our community. I know that our partners at the tribe have been providing funding directly to heads of household. There's an important factor here too, though. The MCA at the time of shutdown did not lay off any of our employees. Many of our employees were working from home or still receiving a payment, a salary at home. Not all organizations in the community can say that. So the financial impact was felt by the community at home, but not as broadly. The monies that we got, total 1.6 million. I know the tribe's sending out a certain amount to the heads of household. We have over 1,500 homes under the jurisdiction of the Mohawk Council, and so if we do the math of 1.6 million, to every home, it's about $100. So it's not. It's not going to go very far, but the services that we provide to the community continue to go forward, and we have to make sure that our organization can continue to respond even in a pandemic. So these are, we have to understand that the finances is one component of it, but we've done our best to be able to continue to move forward. There's a contribution agreement for one-time pandemic pay for the community support services, such as Meals on Wheels, foot care, respite care, home maintenance. Which is it? And home security. What is this? So this is language from one of our contribution agreements. This is a top-up of the $4 per hour that was provided to healthcare employees, and we'll go through that a little bit more. The $4 top-up was the part of the 239 plus funding received. no, in addition to the 932. So back to the numbers again, all of that's everything that has been received thus far. We broke it down from different areas and then broke it down to where it's been spent. Are some of those services not already funded? They are funded, but the funders are requiring an increase in pay, so the new contributions help the extra $4. So there's something that it's important to know. While we have gotten money from the governments, like the Ontario government, who funds our long-term care facilities and provides funding for various health services, they have not provided the equal amount of $4 per hour to the Mohawk Council. So while the government has said healthcare workers are entitled to $4 more per hour, they have not provided the equivalent to $4 an hour to us in funding. So we are paying, we will be paying out of community funds and operating funds for the health programs for that $4 at some point. It hasn't gotten there yet, but it's important to note that as well. So there's a question here, what part of that money was spent on the mobile testing van? So earlier on, the Mohawk Council made the decision that we would purchase a RV for the mobile testing center. And that $37,000 purchase for that vehicle was made from that monies received from the government. Is the van still being used? Yes, it currently is being used by Health for the purpose in which it was purchased for. It's currently been moved to the west side parking lot of Benedict to accommodate the drive-through. Now, understanding we went through back and forth on this, and there was a lot of concern about using one of the MCA facilities for a testing center. That's why the decision was made to purchase a unit that can be used specifically for this. Tested, completed, and results for testing done. So we've gotten lots of questions about this. We've shared the numbers earlier. We've done 431 tests so far. And there was come back as of today, the 431 tests have been done. So we've put out some information today on our testing protocols for residents of the districts to go ahead and how they should go about to get tested. There is a process. We do work with the Eastern Ontario Health Unit on this, so that we follow their instructions. They are the responsible unit in Ontario, the Eastern Ontario Health Unit. So we look to them for guidance documents. They also are the ones that actually do the testing for us, the specimens that are taken from our mobile unit. There was a question received about the cottagers. So we have a number of leases that we have in the community territory, Hamilton Island, Stanley Island, a number of the other islands. So the question is, how are you monitoring or addressing people who come onto the territory, like those who have cabin leases and bring a number of guests to their cabins from Montreal, Toronto, and Ottawa? So we have told all of the cottagers that lease from us that all of the community laws of Akwesasne apply to them. So the law that says that community people who are coming in from outside the 50 mile have to quarantine for 14 days, that still applies to people who lease from us. Who's responsible to oversee the lease agreements for the cottagers is the Office of Vital Statistics, OVS. They administer the administration of that. Especially when it comes to renovations, removal of items for renovations, so improvements of those leases, OVS is responsible as well. So what is the current status of the compliance officer program? So it's currently active. We have another question here. It says there were several individuals that went through a program for it. It was thought the MCA would be funding a bigger and improved compliance program. So the council, we continue to look for dollars for community law enforcement to be able to expand that program, but we did run a pilot project. The Justice Department ran a pilot project a couple of years ago. Another question that we received from the community was around AFN. The question is, why did the MCA pull away from them? What is MCA's plan to be kept up to date in the different areas that AFN is involved in? So back earlier in March, the MCA the chiefs and council made a decision that we would resign from all of the national committees of the Assembly of First Nations. We still continue to be part of the Chiefs of Ontario and the AFNQL, which are regional representative bodies, but we are no longer participating on the AFN committees that have various committees across the sectors. So does the AFNQL fall within that structure, or are they separate? So again, the AFNQL, which is the Assembly of First Nations, Quebec and Labrador, are separate organizations that they have representatives who sit at the AFN. We are still part of them and the Chiefs of Ontario. The Akwesasne Emergency Response. So what is the Akwesasne Emergency Response Law? As I mentioned this earlier in the going forward, so the council has looked at ways to legislatively ensure that there is compliance and that there are directives and orders that are provided that are supported by legislation. So what we have asked the Akwesasne Justice Department to do is to consider enacting an Akwesasne Emergency Response Law, which would give some legislative authority to provide directives and orders in the community, whether it be to the organization or to community businesses, organizations, to be able to, so that we can adequately respond to protect the community from a second wave. This is very similar legislation that Ontario has, the Ontario Emergency Orders Act. Quebec has a very similar act. Ganawagi, in fact, has an emergency response law. We're asking Justice to consider developing one in our community. And who is this for? The question was that we received this emergency response law. So the Mohawk Council, all of our laws are applicable to under our jurisdiction, which means that would be applicable to residents under the northern portion of the community. Another question that we received is about the 50-mile radius. So the 50-mile radius is for members of Akwesasne, the northern portion. It says, can we travel the 100-mile radius as shown on the SRNT map? So the Tribal Council had made a decision that they would increase the travel restriction radius to 100 miles under their jurisdiction, meaning under the southern portion of Akwesasne. We currently remain at 50 miles, and any resident who resides under the territory and jurisdiction of the MCA still is bound by the 50-mile travel radius. So that meaning if you travel outside of the 50-mile travel radius, that you're required to quarantine in home for 14 days. Now, one of the biggest driving forces here is that if we were to expand to 100 miles, brings the city of Montreal into right into that sector. And you'll recall from the presentation earlier, Montreal has had 28,000 cases compared to some other cities, i.e. Ottawa, that's about 2,500. So very hot zone there. As for people who routinely need to be outside of the radius for work reasons and come home every weekend, does the community health have a record of those and monitor them routinely? And no, they do not. It's not in their mandate to monitor them. People are required to comply with the law. This is a conversation that we have had many times at council about the compliance of the law. It is something the emergency law, response law would also give a bit more authorities over, but that's currently how it is now. How long do you anticipate being in a state of emergency? So this question is not answerable. It really is based on the threat to the community from the COVID-19 virus. We do know that a vaccine, there is no vaccine for the COVID-19. There's been projections that by the end of the year there will be one. So this really continues to be a changing situation, and we will look. When it is appropriate to lift the state of emergency, but it won't likely be any time in the foreseeable future. It's just not, this pandemic really is a day-to-day thing. How will that affect schools? So this is to be determined. We've gotten lots of questions about this. The COVID is rapidly changing. All plans are being explored for AMBI for the students, and decisions have not been made, but there is ideas between in-class, online, or a hybrid approach. We do know that some students have done very well in online learning when the schools closed, others have not. So the decision has not been made yet. But the Akwesasne Board of Education is currently doing a survey to their parents to get a feedback on people's comfort level, and so that they can make an informed decision later on this month coming. Our stores in the northern portion required to have customers and workers wear masks and enforce social distance in their place. Yes, we have sent notice in our MCA response presentation. We've sent notice and letters to all of the community businesses saying that they need to protect their employees. They need to protect the community members who go into their stores. Cannabis. With the recent licenses issued for cannabis sales, what is the authorized route and why is there a required authorized route to be used? Should it not be long as you remain in Akwesasne waters? The way the Akwesasne cannabis interim regulations is written is that a route has to be provided for the persons who are looking to get a license so that they can show that they will be transiting from one part of the community to the other in an authorized route that does stay in the northern, in Canada, essentially, because of the prohibitions in the United States. So that is applicable to the persons with licenses in that case. External forces. So concerns with border services, Canada, United States, and the lack of safety hygiene for traveling public. They take their cards from travelers, they hand it back without sanitizing their gloves. Issue of potential cross-contamination. So we do have a call every Tuesday with representatives from the border, Canada border and the United States border, and we talk about, we provide updates and dialogue on current issues, current traffic trends. This is something that I think that, we continuously talk about. It is, there is mechanisms provided. Some officers do accept the cards by hand, others will use the machines. If there is a situation where community members are uncomfortable with providing them, they need to communicate that to the officer that they're not comfortable with that. But many of the officers are taking precautions and sanitizing. Also, I'm not sure how many of us at this point, but carry hand sanitizer around to wipe it down, wipe the cards down. If there are concerns directly about this, or there's an officer's conduct who is not appropriate, please let us know directly and we can follow up on that. Is there any feedback, update of feedback since the RCMP letter was sent out to them on June 29th? So again, in our PowerPoint presentation, the RCMP did acknowledge that the AMPS is the police force responsible here, and that they will continue to be at the request of the AMPS to patrol the community territory. So these questions, next ones are a bit of MCA operations. I do want to say that while we want to ensure we're addressing all the questions of the community related to operations, persons who have situations of workplace issues should be addressing them with their supervisors in the chain of command, but we will go through them tonight as well. But we just need to make that disclaimer that the administrative issues are purely with the executive director on behalf of council and the entire organization. So where are these programs all located now? So a recent announcement via Grand Chief has council at his main band office. Housing is now in Cornwall Island. So there have been some changes in the organization, physical changes. Currently right now, Administration 1, which is the A-frame in St. Regis, Mohawk Government is transitioning to here. Executive Services is here. Human Resource and Aboriginal Rights and Research, will be coming over here. Finance is no longer here. Cornwall Island Administration number 3. So the CIA building has housing, which moved from St. Regis to Cornwall Island. So housing is there now. Building maintenance, home care, home support, environment, and the court. These are all the programs that are at CIA. Administration 4, which is the former housing building up the hill here in St. Regis, is now finance. So finance has relocated to there. And the Peachtree Mall, now has economic development in it. So they've moved out of CIA. So once the moves are all complete, we will be publishing a new updated directory on this, but that is currently where people are or will be going to. Now, and fully reopening offices and accessibility. So MCA is mostly open. most services are by appointment only, and it's safer to call in prior to showing up just to check in. So call ahead to make sure. Another question received was, why the rush to need to reopen all facilities and schools? There is too much conflicting information for facilities, protocols, procedures are not unified across the organization. Cleaning supplies are limited, etc. So we are in the process of still getting all procedures unified. There are some conflicts that need to be reported to management. If there are some conflicts that needs to be reported to management, if cleaning supplies are running low, management needs to order and request assistance. So AMBI is not rushing. We have been closed since March. Management have met daily to discuss the plan for reopening. Protocols are in place and steps have been taken to ensure that the risks are minimized. There is very limited access to the buildings, and temperatures and a standard questioning at the entrance is administered. Supplies have been ordered and are slowly coming in, but we do have enough PPE to begin our services. Individuals should request clarification from their supervisors if they're unsure of protocols and procedures. So what's the other question here? What health professionals are providing documentation for employees to return to work after isolation or quarantine? So community health nurses is the one that is providing documentation that is required. Who is monitoring the isolation and quarantine timeframes for employees? The manager should be, as well as the person exposed. There is responsibility on the people who have been exposed to a responsibility of their own as well. So during the pandemic, some self-care, is also expected from the employees. What is the liability if someone returns and shows symptoms after isolation? I'm not sure what this question is asking. The liability risk is further exposure. If someone is feeling ill, they must stay home. Everyone is told to stay home. If they or someone in their home is ill, MCA has sent people home and recommends they call the community health if they are feeling unwell. Are the facilities and schools going to have the manpower to do the upkeep and cleaning and sanitizing all the facilities? So we are anticipating enough, but the plans for education have not been yet finalized. Being able to make payments with Interact at court, fines, justice, licenses, permits, and housing rent and payments. Can hydro still be paid at MCA where are payments made? So the payments can be made now at the finance department, which is at MN4, which is up the hill here in Ganadago. If a spouse of an MCA employee travels beyond 50-mile radius for work, does the MCA employee self-quarantine for 14 days as a community member should if they travel outside of the radius? No, the spouse is not in violation of the law, the employee and not the employee. So the couple should be diligent to ensure that they are not increasing the risks to bringing the virus home and should closely monitor their health. We're getting there. We have about 6 more questions. How MCA employees treated if they live outside of the 50-mile radius? Are they monitored regularly? So this does happen. If the position of the employee is in critical, such as a nurse, they are tested and they are monitored to ensure the exposure is limited. Can you post the new MCA organizational chart along with committees, commissions, and boards that are involved with the MCA and its organization? So this will take some time, but yes, we are going to ask the administration to ensure that this is posted on the Akwesasne webpage. So again, these are some questions around the pay for the pandemic pay. These are administrative, but we have been asked and we're going to provide responses to you. If there are other further questions, we ask that employees please speak to their supervisors or call human resource to seek further clarification. So where are these other healthcare professionals that were to be reassigned? So reassigning staff to another role can be considered constructive dismissal. Putting non-unionized employees in a unionized environment can be considered taking work away from the unionized worker. There are many mitigating factors that need to be considered, but administration is looking into this for the next wave. There were a few employees that were reassigned to other facilities, and these employees were asked first and agreed to go. Yes, there were some employees, nurses that refused to be assigned, but they were reminded that there was an emergency order to reassign them as needed. How did home support workers that didn't work through the entire pandemic receive a higher pay over those whom were actually worked the entire pandemic? So this statement is not factual. This did not happen. Payroll is currently working on home care program pandemic pay, and they expect it to be paid by August 20th. There are about 30 employees that work in home care, Yakisuta, and Meals and Wheels under the CCS budget, and they are the only ones that got it so far, other than Jiyunkunusa employees. So they are in the process of getting the pandemic pay rolled out. Why aren't healthcare professionals that were out of work not redeployed to Akwesasne long-term care facilities? And this was a management decision. Why did it take so long to receive the pandemic pay? So the MCA implemented a top-up on April 24th of 6%, which was effective on April 12th. The ministry funding was just offered recently and was retroactive back to April 24th for healthcare workers. They received the MCA 6% from April 12th to April 24th. So why doesn't the Department of Technical Services receive pandemic pay? And they are receiving the MCA 6% top-up. DTS care workers that are physically working in long-term care facilities, their increase will be included in the next round of August 20th. So the ones that have not received it will be receiving it in August, and it will be retro. What is the reason for taking back the 6% top-up after we received the pandemic pay? So the pay increase was an either or scenario, not both. So administration chose to implement the amount that would be most beneficial to the worker. $4 increase is significantly higher than the 6%. So those staff that received the 6% no longer receive the 6%, but receive the $4 per hour. And when you do the calculations, it's a greater benefit to the employees to receive $4 more per hour than 6%. Why wasn't the pandemic pay why wasn't the pandemic pay issued in a separate check to my non-native coworkers? So this is called tax evasion, and it's against the law. The pay is an insurable earning and is subject to all income taxes. The employee would still have to pay the same amount of taxes and statutory deductions, whether or not was in their payroll check or a separate check. So we're not going to be assisting in any tax evasion for any of the employees. Community technology services. So what steps is the MCA or its organization taking to have Bell Canada increase their services for internet in Snai, St. Regis, and Cornwall Island, improve speed and capacity, even Bell Mobility with its cellular services? So we do realize that the access to technology is not the same in all of our districts. Some have better service, whether it be cell phone or high-speed internet, and vice versa. We are currently waiting our final approval on a fiber to home project. So we had this project underway for quite a few, several months, if not over a year to get fiber to the home. This will allow for optics connection to community homes. If we don't get approval on this project, we will look to implement other community-based Wi-Fi systems that will at least reach homes that have little to no service. So these are some things that we know has continuously been an issue, and we are working on them, but there are some other things underway. So, all right, so that concludes our presentation and question and answers that had been received prior to tonight's meeting. We will entertain some questions from the folks that are on the Zoom or on the phone. So I do see one hand here raised. I'm going to go to the LG Neon Plus. You want to go ahead and unmute yourself? No, I'm not. Unfortunately, we're not hearing you, so I don't know if you don't have connectivity for the sound on your phone that you're using. Are there any questions from any of the other folks that are on the phones or on the Zoom system that you would like to ask in relation to what's been presented, or any other questions for myself or council?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, you can. Go ahead.
Okay. Hi, Abram. This is Donna Lazore. I want to thank you guys for answering all the questions that I had posted on my Facebook. My biggest concern was our Yaqui Sutta workers and Junkanusada workers, but clearly listening to this whole meeting, I want to thank you guys for updating us, and that way I can spread the word to let them know that there's no monies that are being hidden, lied about, or anything. So I want to thank you all for, thank you for this. So I don't really have a question, but I just want to thank you all.
You're welcome. And
Good job, good job, good job, by the way.
Thank you. And I can tell you that council is working very hard to ensure that we meet the needs, and we're not hiding any monies, I can assure you that.
And that's exactly what I tell everyone. I said, Mohawk Council, you ask them a question, they will tell you. They will prove it to you and they will show you. So now with you guys doing this, I can go back to all the peoples and tell them, look, here's the proof, here's the money, here's what's going on. And I shared that food survey to tell people, come on, do it. You guys want to talk, saying that MCA is hiding the money? Here we go. This is what they're doing. This is what they're offering. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. And the PowerPoint presentation is on our website as well, so that is published.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I have another person, so go ahead.
Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Abram, this is Cheryl Jacobs.
Hi, Cheryl.
Hi. I just wanted to know if I could get an update. I remember speaking with Chief Lazore, Daryl, and I think he mentioned you were possibly working with CBSA and CBP on the possibility of the cement, when we order cement from Cornwall to be delivered to the Quebec portion. Is there any updates on that progress being made?
As far as just the service being provided into Snyder St. Regis, you mean?
Yeah, like if I order cement from Cornwall, gravel, or whoever, and it gets delivered to St. Regis, because from what I understand, they won't come right now because they're being told they got to quarantine for 14 days. But I'm pretty sure Chief Lazore told me we're working on something for them to possibly be able to bring cement across.
Daryl, do you have a response to that?
Yes, I do. Good evening, Cheryl.
Thank you.
We had spoke to CBSA in our weekly meetings. One of the things that CBSA told us that they wouldn't be holding up or imposing the health criteria that the health is requesting when non-natives cross back across the border. Unfortunately, some of the companies in Cornwall have policies will not allow their trucks or their drivers to come across the border just because of their policies in place and a liability issue with their employees. But if you can find, if any other company comes across and they allow them, CBSA will not impede them. They will allow them to come and go and deliver concrete to SNI and St. Regis. It's just certain companies that it's not CBSA, it's not Mohawk Council, it's the company itself with their policies and their liabilities. So we did speak to them, and Phil LeBlanc at CBSA is very cooperative with us and understands the situation. And like he told us, he will not impede anything for or delay any construction if he can help it. So that's.
What about customs, U.S. Customs?
U.S. Customs will also let them through. They will not give them. We have a pretty good relationship with both stakeholders, and they will not impede or hold them up, and they will let them through. So it was a question.
As long as they know.
It was a question on one of our contractors, but they won't hold anything up, and they gave us our word. And some of the contractors are getting through that are essential service, and they consider construction, I think, essential services for the community.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other questions that members of the community have Karen, I see your hand. Are you waving goodbye or you want to say something? Go ahead, Karen. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Unmute. Okay. No, thank you for all the updates. I follow along with a lot of the updates that are on the internet, your MCA announcements. I'm just wondering if there would be a better way of tracking, like, I'd like to know if SNI's the hot spot. You know how Franklin County and St. Lawrence County breaks it up into their counties of how many tastes. So I'd like to know if there's any in SNI, if there's any in St. Regis, if there's any on the island. I like the report and updates that you give on how many tests have been given, how many cases, who's recovering. I think those are really important to set the mind at ease, because it's still quite unsafe. Nobody's paying attention. I don't know why we're even doing the screeners. Nobody's answering those screeners on an honest base, because what's the point? They're doing what they're doing. They're not isolating. Nobody's reporting the isolation. Nobody's following up with the people that are isolating. You're seeing these community members walking about when they should be isolating. So that instills a little bit of fear to some people. And then it's going to start coming into the workforce. So that's why I was just a little concerned with the monitoring and, you know, the testing and just knowing what's out there. The need for statistics, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I can assure you that we have talked lots about ensuring that we track people's not track people, but ensure that people are complying with the requirements to isolate at home, that they are being returned, being allowed out of isolation safely. The numbers, we've pushed hard to have the numbers published regularly, how many calls, how many tests being done. We'll continue to look at providing that to the community. Thankfully, we're not in the double digits or anything where we're going to report that, there are 5 or 10, in SNI and Arno Island and vice versa, but hopefully we don't get there. But yes, no, we're very conscious of the numbers and how that it's important to the community, but it also it reminds people that, we're not immune.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Are there any other questions from members of the community that are on the phone? Yeah,
I have a question. I'm not on the phone though.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm assuming I missed you guys talking about language. I don't know if you've already talked about that, and if you have, is this recorded and can I find it somewhere after?
Is there any members that can speak to some of the initiatives on the language that we are doing? We didn't actually address it, Chelsea.
I don't know if the question made it to everybody, or should I re-ask my question, or?
If you have it there, it would be helpful. It didn't make it on the list. It got oversighted. My apologies for that. But if you have it there, you could read it to us.
Well, it's in my mind, but I'll just ask I just am wondering what if language revitalization is on the agenda with our leadership, and in what ways, just because of the urgency of language loss and the state that we're at, and then taking a further look at what we're currently doing in our community on both sides of the border to revitalize language, and then what needs to be done for like real impact of saving our language. And then further wondering what are we looking at, or any of our leadership, I guess I would say leadership, looking at models outside of Akwesasne that are proven to work, such as Kahnawake, Six Nations, and then even in Tyendinaga, where they have community-wide strategic plans, because there's already like people on the ground, right, who are doing the work, adult learners learning and coming back as speakers, but really needing a push from many areas. And I think that's where leadership comes in, is not to do the work, but to help to push the agenda, because right now people don't really have it on their mind, right? That our language could go extinct. And so that's what we're here to do, is to, raise the issue of, hey, our language is going to go extinct if we don't take it seriously. So I'm wondering if that's a topic, if there's any plans or anything of that sort.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I apologize. We did get your email and I didn't make it into the question roll call, but I will go to Chief Julie to respond because we did locate it.
Hi, Chelsea. We spoke with Ambi about this from an Ambi point of view last night, and this was the response. We said, over the last 3 years, both Ambi with the support of MCA and Yohio have offered training for staff in Mohawk language. We released 5 teachers for a year to immerse in the language in order to better support our schools and children. Some staff have also taken courses with the tribe, and 2 are returning to our immersion school this year. We also have a new teacher who lives in 6 Nations but completed the Ganawage course, hired for the immersion school this beginning this fall. And then it went on to say that under the leadership of Alice King, we continue to build resources, both electronic and paper, for students and community access. We have consistently advertised for Mohawk speakers, artists, and elders to support our development efforts, and we encourage all interested individuals to contact Alice King at ambi.ca. And we're proud of our Mohawk webpage and are working diligently to increase the content on that page. We are currently planning initiatives for language and cultural learning while respecting social distancing, and we'll be advertising for speakers and artists to assist with these initiatives within the schools. And both MCA and AMBI have Mohawk language and culture prioritized in our strategic plan. So those are just things from kind of an AMBI point of view, but I know Joe had a few things too from the language committee that he was on, so I'll let him go ahead now.
And Joe, we're going to ask you to unmute and you can speak a bit about that work that you were working on.
Okay, I'd just like to update a little bit on some of your questions there about our language, and I'm glad Julie touched base what's going on in-house here. On a national level, I've been participating with the AFN, trying to, I guess, improve our language and trying to make working groups, because we're at the point now where they did accept our language right in Parliament, and we fought 3 years on that with the AFN to get us some extra funding, and they kind of agreed to it, and now they're sending us some stuff that we have to get prepared. They're trying to make a commissions in place, boards, and a law. There's a lot of work that has to be done, and we're trying to get ready to make a working task group right in here, right in Akwesasne. I know Ganawage has a language law. They have a huge group. I went to their, I believe it was their 30th annual just last fall. And they celebrated they're working on their language so hard over there. So with the part where I was working on with the national level, they've been approved some funds. They're even going to help us develop the working groups, anything that's going to apply to the language. So again, we have to get ready within the house here, and that's what I'm still working on, and trying stuff together. And anybody like yourself can be welcome to come on board with me, and anybody, because we got to get this going. Too bad the COVID kicked in here and slowed things down. But we're on. That was our next turn to get the commission going, get the funding going, get stuff in place. And a lot of it, when we went across Canada, and a lot of it was questions about how do you bring the language back? And that was a question right across Canada. And
like some of them say, well, bring it back to the house where we learned it. Like if you take our elders today, they can't go back to school to get a certificate to teach you. So how can we engage them to participate in this working group? Can we utilize them? So there's a lot of discussion we had. And like I said, I was out from the West Coast right to the East Coast, went all the communities, and they're all willing to work hard on it. And I'm glad you put this topic on the general meeting, because I'm still working on that. And again, if you give me your information, I'd like to touch base with you. I need people, young people like yourself, to come on board. Anybody, I'm not just saying young people, but anybody to come on board that has any kind of ideas. They have elders in their home that can still speak, that we can learn off of, that kind of thing. But AFN has directors that are going to help us set up. So I can give you that much for right now, and hopefully I can get this moving pretty soon again. So you're welcome to come on board, Jones.
Okay, thank you, Joe, for that.
Can I just say something, Abram? Yeah, Oliwe Oguyana wa is yeah, we're waiting and we're ready. We're already doing work. We're already I guess in all those spaces, right? We're in the trenches and we're learning everything and we're finding all the best practices. So I would absolutely offer that. There's so much knowledge that we're gathering, because for us it really is our survival of our language, and that's what it is. So in any way that I can help, be a part of it, share my knowledge, share my experience. I'm really just trying to encourage everybody that it's possible. And there's models out there that are working, and as adults we can do it, not just as young kids. So that's all I want to say. So go.
No, for that. Okay.
Hold on, Chelsea. Would you be willing to do some PSA to bring awareness to the importance of using precautions during a pandemic with the language as a younger person for the elders?
Possibly. We can talk. I can give you guys my information, and then we can talk about it, because we're doing a summer program right now with other adult language learners, where that's all we're doing is just talking to elders and speaking and revitalizing language and stuff like that. So if it fits inside of that, then absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay. Okay. Are there any other questions, comments from any of the folks on the Zoom system or on the phones? If you're on the phone, you have to hit *6 to unmute. Okay. Okay. Otherwise, I do want to say that, you know, some of the information we've shared tonight, we have seen on social media. I do provide regular updates on social media. I don't engage in back and forth on social media, and I will not respond to tags. But for members of our council, email, call myself, email, call, if you want to know any information. Not all things that we see on social media is true. We are doing our best to respond. That goes for administration as well. If there are things, the administrator, the executive director who has joined us for this meeting as well, she is available to take calls and questions as well, administrative matters that you have inquiries about. That she has an open door policy as well. We want to be able to share all the information, but we will not get in online back and forth. We just need people to realize that as well. So as I mentioned earlier in the presentation with the police services, we will be doing an information Zoom session on police, taking what we've heard from the community, questions, comments, concerns, and addressing all of those so that we get all of the information out there, and we can do more of those on other items. One of the other items that I got on the email that I think is important to answer, we stopped taking questions earlier on because we were getting inundated, but was Wade LaFrance Road. I know that our Gisnine district has been putting lots of pressure on council to repair Wade LaFrance. This is another online social media that's been beating us up over Wade LaFrance. I'm happy to report that this past Monday, The council approved the contract for Lazore's construction to begin the phase of reconstruction for the Wade LaFrance. So there is a process that has to be followed to do roads. It's a planning, it's a, you know, identifying money, but there is some going to be happening there at the Wade LaFrance. So it's not going unnoticed. The road that is terrible. We have all been down there. So that work will be begun. That question came in a little late this evening, but we will be seeing some movement there this summer to fix that up. So, okay, look, I have to do some formalities before we wrap up this evening. I do want to say though that we may be going Facebook Live on this stuff later on. This meeting is being recorded, will be shared. We're just conscious of sensitive information that we may discuss is why it's being recorded. If anything has to be taken out, we will take it out. We're going to continue to look at perhaps going live on this in the future. I just want you to know that, but the next general meeting will definitely be like this for the foreseeable future. So I do have to read a resolution for the record since we are in official meeting here that we accept. So therefore, the Mohawk Council of Akwesasne accepts and approves the general meeting minutes of January 23rd, 2020. If I could have a mover from the member of council, moved by Carolyn, second by Julie. Discussion on this resolution. There is no discussion on this resolution. I will ask for a vote on this resolution. All those members of council in favor, can you please raise your hand in front of your camera? Any members against the resolution? All right, there's none so against. So this has been carried, this resolution. We don't have district meetings set up at this time. We will continue to move forward with examining that. The next general meeting has not been set yet, but we will notify that. Carolyn, I'm going to go to you. We wanted to give an acknowledgement of some of the positives that have happened during this pandemic, and we want to pay tribute to that. So Carolyn, I'm going to go to you if you could do that for us.
Okay, now you can hear me. We want to take a minute to recognize that throughout the past several months, we have faced many challenges and trying times, but we have continued to persevere. We wish to acknowledge all of our community members and families who have achieved accomplishments, big and small, throughout the pandemic. Whether it was your graduation that required your continued hard work, or the development of a new skill or hobby, new ways of bonding with your family, or the innovative ways you found to live life through the many changes dealt to us. We want to recognize the spirit of the Akwesasne people. Stay united, stay positive, and let's get through this together. Yawa.
Yeah, to all of you for joining us this evening. I appreciate that, Carolyn, and please, all of you, continue to remain safe and be vigilant. So if I could have a motion to adjourn the meeting, I would appreciate that. Tim and Joe, thank you very much to all of you. Have a great evening, and we will talk very soon.